Um,
All right, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Hang on here, I just want to get myself straightened up. All right, well, it is the age of webinars, and sometimes when you try to put these on, you run into a few little difficulties, as we have this morning. So, or this afternoon now. So, first of all, I'm Jay Madison. I'm the Jefferson County Agricultural Coordinator, and I'd like to welcome all of you to participating in today's webinar. I am really excited about this. I think we've got a great program lined up, and Dr. Mitchell and I, we tried to have a conversation last week that was planned for a half hour, and I think we were an hour and a half by the time we were done, weren't we, Dr. Mitchell?
right. We probably could have gone on for a longer time too.
Yeah, it was a really interesting conversation. So before I go further in introducing Dr. Mitchell, I'd just like to thank all of our sponsors for helping us bring this to you today. Midway International Logistics, the Development Authority of the North Country, Great Lakes Cheese Company, makers of the world's best cheddar cheese, Afritech, manufacturer of AminoMax, National Grid Economic Development and Energy Efficiency Programs, the American Dairy Association Northeast, Converse Laboratories, Lundy Group of Companies, and Jefferson County Farm Bureau. So really appreciate all of their support in helping make this webinar series happen. And just to make a note, next month on November 19th, we have another great speaker coming, Dr. Frank Mittliner, known as the Greenhouse Gas Guru on social media. And he's going to talk to us about the impact of animal agriculture on the climate. So it's going to be another great presentation, hopefully without the technical difficulty we were running into today. So plant-based food substitutes, it's become a huge topic out there. Marshall Weir, our marketing director here in the office, and I had the opportunity to fly out to California in 2019 to attend the Food Evolution Summit. And it really opened my eyes, besides hearing about the Impossible Whopper on TV, attending the summit really opened my eyes to what is developing out there in the agricultural industry. We heard directly from Impossible Foods about the development of their Impossible Burger. We also heard from Finless Foods about the development of, they're working on developing bluefin tuna fillets with just one sample of bluefin tuna tissue that develops all of these fillets from. And that's in addition to all of the plant-based beverages that we've been hearing about for a while. So we felt it was important that Jefferson County Economic Development and the Jefferson County Ag Development Council, we thought it was important to explore this issue with all of you and talk about what's happening now and what the future holds. And we were very fortunate to find one of the world's authorities on developing these types of products, developing the ingredients for these types of products. So I would like to introduce to you Dr. Cheryl Mitchell. She is the Senior Vice President of Ingredient Manufacturing at Steuben Foods out in Western New York. And she is, as I noted, is recognized as a world authority in the processing of grains, nuts, and seeds. She spent the last 40 years creating commercially wholesome ingredients, utilizing unique food processing methods that maintain or maximize the nutrients in plant-based resources. Dr. Mitchell in 2015 joined the senior management team of Steuben Foods, an innovative aseptic co-packing facility located in Elma, New York. And they've been shifting their dairy focus over to plant-based nutrition, utilizing the technology developed by Dr. Mitchell. before I turn it over to our questions, Dr. Mitchell, I want to invite our audience to submit questions as we go through the program. I'd like the audience to know all you have to do to participate in this is to click the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen. And that will submit your question to me, and I will try to incorporate those into the conversations we've already received. So I think it was a half dozen questions, Dr. Mitchell, that we've already got incorporated into the interview. And I've got a bunch of them here, but certainly want to hear from all of you. This is your opportunity to participate via the Q&A feature. So don't hesitate to submit those questions through the program. So Dr. Mitchell, how are you today?
I'm fine, Jay. How are you? And thank you for having me on your show today.
Well, we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, and I'm doing well now that we can talk to each other and actually hear each other. That's kind of important for this. But again, appreciate you joining us. We'll get right into it because we've got a lot to talk about. And the first question is more of a general question. Tell us a little bit about the work that you've done at Steuben Foods and the development of plant-based food ingredients.
Sure. Actually, the history of my history with plant-based food ingredients actually starts about 40 years ago, as you mentioned, in California, where I was working with my own company, Creative Research Management, and also California Natural Products. But what we were developing at that time was the base for rice stream from Imagine Foods. And it was a very interesting product because here was a product that was, he wanted to have a milk type substitute, an alternative to milk at that time based on rice. But this is something that's been around for about 2,000 years in a more traditional sense. But up until this time, only soy has been used, and he wanted to use the rice technology. So we got involved in that, and those were my initial patents with regards to how to incorporate rice and making this type of rice milk that would appeal to the general public. It was something quite unique, and learned a lot about plant-based milks at that time, and it was the first time that, other than soy milk, that the concept was that we could have something that was hypoallergenic and as an alternative to the milk. And so that's where it all started. I was actually very disappointed, as I mentioned to you, because in doing that, I realized the limitations of what I was making for the package type that we wanted to put it into, because the U.S. population was not really familiar with milk alternatives at that time. And we knew that to have the turns on the marketing side of the product, that we actually had to put it in shelf-stable format so that the stores wouldn't kick us out immediately. And it gave the consumers time to adjust to the new concept of a milk alternative. So we actually ended up developing and moving forward in the aseptic processing. I know there's a question on that a little bit later, but the aseptic processing gives us a chance to be shelf-stable. This really gave us the opportunity to introduce milk alternatives to the general public, which was well received. And but the problem, as I said, in developing that product, I had to remove a lot of the nutritional values because of the processing equipment used in making the low acid aseptic product. So I was quite disappointed in the final product, although it served very well. It was the #1 SKU in the area for about the life of the patent. But I needed to resolve the issue, and the issue was we have to leave all the nutrient value in there. The thing is, we've been given rice as a grain. How do we maintain it so we keep all the fat in there, all the macro and micronutrients associated with the whole grain, and deliver those in a milk-based alternative to the general public? So the next years with my new company, Creative Research Management, my team and I actually worked on developing how to maximize the nutritional ingredients and composition of all raw materials, grains, nuts, and seeds, which we were successful doing. And we referred to this process as the hydro release process. That's what brought me to Elma, New York, and Steuben Foods, is because not only were they a low acid aseptic, a shelf stable processor with a very new format, a SIG Combi format, but the owner was very interested after being a dairyman and processing milk in Jamaica, Queens, New York, which he could no longer keep active and had to shut down that facility, became very interested himself in the potential plant-based milk alternatives. And that's where he and I got together, and I moved here 5 years ago, and we built the ingredient plant.
Just want to back up for a second. Something that I didn't quite catch in our original conversation last week. So when you say rice cream, that was the name of the product that you were generating.
Rice Dream.
Rice Dream? Okay.
Yeah.
And you refer to it as a milk-based alternative. So do you mean you had actual, real milk in the product, or was the product a rice formulated fluid? Forgive me, but I'm going to be technical here.
Oh yeah, no, we refer to it as a rice beverage. Okay.
Okay.
It was a category that people referred to as a milk alternative. We never used the term milk. We always used the term as a rice beverage, and that was the correct terminology. At the time, it still is the correct terminology, no matter what you make it from. It's a beverage. It's not a juice, and it's not a milk. It's a beverage.
Okay. Yeah, and that's just, because, representing all of agriculture, but especially here in Jefferson County in the North Country, dairy farming, there's some real sensitivity, as I know you understand, to calling these products a milk when they don't have milk in them. So,
right, and I wasn't using the term milk. I said milk alternative. So it's an alternative to milk, or milk alternative.
Okay.
As I said, I know there's been a lot of concerns about referring to these beverages, these milk alternative beverages, and an alternative to milk as a milk. So totally different things. On the labeling and referring it to soy milk or almond milk, or as other people have done, we never did that. It was, Imagine right from the beginning was a rice-based beverage. And
Okay.
they were very clear about that. But it was used to mainly, the main aspect of it was for those that had allergies or sensitivities to either the lactose, and there was no lactose-free milk at that time. We're talking about the 80s. So having a totally non-dairy beverage was an option that didn't exist before. So it was for allergies and sensitivities to lactose. And for that, we picked up a lot of people out there, and it became a substantial business. But it also really paved the way for the new concept with regards to alternative type beverages. And this is where the whole market is.
Okay. And you've answered my next question pretty well, but I just wanted to ask it to make sure I didn't miss anything. why is there so much effort being placed on the development of these plant-based beverages? When I run down the list, people, well, I did a presentation for Watertown Sunrise Rotary Club this morning, and I said, yeah, and pea milk. And they're like, pea milk? What is pea milk? So why is there so much effort on developing all these products?
Well, first of all, it was very interesting in the development of these products. At first, it was just soy and rice out there. This was in the 80s, 90s. In 2000 is where the almond people got involved with it because they said, oh, this is a big deal. So it went to almond and coconut, and then everybody started adding all kinds of, we've done hemp and chia and a lot of things. Unfortunately, when they did that, and all alternatives are not the same. When they introduced the almond product, it was unfortunate from the point of view is that it didn't really have that much almonds in it. So it didn't have the nutritional value. When we started, and this is where I was struggling, when I first did the rice stream formulation, I had to pull things out. I said, this is wrong. We need to maximize the nutrients. We did figure out a way, but almonds and the almond industry had already developed an almond milk where it was a water formulation with just a few almonds in it. So it didn't have the nutritional value, not even the nutritional value of the rice stream product. And that was where I said we're going off on the wrong direction here because it was a very good business model. I mean, anytime that you can sell water and sticking it up with gums, it's going to be a really good business model from the cost, but it wasn't delivering nutrition. And the dairy people have to really understand that what they're selling is nutrition. And this is all about nutrition. Now, catching up to that area of producing products that are in a beverage format that can also deliver nutrition. Everybody knows about smoothies, mixing all kinds of things in there with it. Some of them are milk-based, some of them are not milk-based, and they add other constituents like protein powders or carbohydrates, sugars, and everything, fats, whatever they're going to focus on there. So people want different types of bases, blends they can do other than water. And dairy is just one component of making these types of beverages and alternatives. So I think it was an answer to your question, why the focus on that? Well, I think there was just a big hullabaloo of the almonds coming in from that perspective and a few others. It was a good business model. People were making a lot of money, and we've been, actually yelling for a long time that saying, yes, but this isn't, you're not delivering nutrition. And okay. They couldn't do it because the technology that I developed allowed me to do it. So we could do an almond product now that has like 18 almonds per serving versus only 2 or 3. So ours is liquid nuts, theirs is a drink. It's kind of like the difference between an Adwala juice and Tang.
Tang's a good reference there, way back.
Yeah.
Then, so, I want to get into, we've got a question that was submitted to us. And again, just to remind folks, if you have a question, just click on that Q&A button, and I will do my best to incorporate it into the conversation. But this question we had, we hear that some of those leading the growth of plant-based food substitutes have an agenda of ending animal agriculture. And I've heard that a lot. In your opinion, do you believe that is the common goal of those behind plant-based food substitute, the plant-based food substitute industry? And do you see plant-based food substitutes having a substantial impact on animal agriculture. And I've actually, I will tell you, Dr. Mitchell, you know, in the lead up to this webinar, I've had 2 phone calls or messages from people concerned that we were even having this webinar to give this topic its ground. Now, you and I both agree we need to talk about this. Everybody needs to be aware of it, and it's agriculture. But there's that concern about, is there an underlying current against animal agriculture with the development of these products?
I think the underlying current is by a select group of people. When you're dealing with veganism or how people perceive the world, and the growing population. And it really, that's the big elephant in the room, is growing population. How are we going to feed everybody? That's the bottom line of it. We want to be able to feed and advance. So we're talking about all different ways. I don't care how it's done. There's different ways to advance agriculture, including animal agriculture. That shouldn't be eliminated. That's my own personal feelings, but I'm sure there are other people that have a very strong feeling about totally eliminating it. And that's true. A lot of, there is a percentage of vegans that are vegans for different reasons. It could be strictly for health reasons, it could be for environmental reasons, or it could be for philosophical belief reasons with regards to animals and how they're handled. I think we should all be concerned about how animals can be handled in the future and worked with in the future, especially when we're talking on the dairy side of it. And I think that what we're going to see in the future, the realistic thing, is that we're going to see a balance. I talked to you briefly, and the best way to try to understand this is with what happened with hybrids and hybrid cars. There are people out there that stick straight to the gas model because that's the only way that they feel that they can ever get the speed, the desire of everything they want in a gas model. And then you've got the Tesla, you know, on the other side, or the pure electric cars. Well, there's advantages, disadvantages to that electric cars. And is that the way of the future? Maybe, maybe not, but it is something different that a lot of people are adhering to. Again, it gets into environmental efficiencies and everything associated with those electric cars. And then you have this broader base of people that are sitting there saying, well, I'm willing to try something new. And I can see that the future may be going more towards preserving the gas and the petrochemical resources of our planet versus the electricity of what we can do there. But if it's somewhere in between, that gives them the satisfaction and allows them to move from one area to the other. So we see more and more of this widening gap of the hybrid. I'm saying that the same thing is going to be seen and really needs to be seen with regards to plant-forward type of products and the agriculture or the meat and dairy agricultural products of the day. If we can show that we can create very unique hybrids that are just as nutritional and just as valuable, will be a way of getting people, and obviously there's more flexitarians out there now, people that want to make the change, but it's hard. I keep on telling people, this isn't a revolution. This is an evolution. And so it's going to take time. And even with the dairy, this is what I said, the problem in the past is that we didn't have anything as nutritional. From a plant-forward point of view, we really didn't have anything that was had the same nutritional value or could add to the nutritional value of dairy versus diminish it. So we don't want to diminish it, but we do want to extend it and recreate how we look at dairy. Why is it so important? I mean, think about the cost. If dairy is a premium, and they can get the price that they really need to get for the dairy, then we're allowing them to become and create and be more sustainable. But it'll be a different type of product. So you'll always have the premium dairy products, but we can do this hybrid. The classic example is like if you had oats this morning, milk and oats is a thing. If you had the full grain oats in there. And that's the type of products that we're working on here in Elma.
So there's a whole bunch of questions that are popping into my mind, plus we've had a question submitted to us. All right, so I'm going to work from my question here on the sheet and then try to incorporate a couple different things into this. One of the concerns I've heard is that with these products that are being developed, both the plant-based beverages and the plant-based meats, is the ingredients. We're hearing this, all of the concerns about good, healthy food and eating whole foods, and now we've got foods that are being developed that have pretty good ingredient list. And I'm going to see if I can tie this in the questions that's been, well, I can. I've got to ask that question. So if you would you address that issue first? And right. I'm getting Tom talk quietly, so, okay, all right. Well, I'm excited. This is a good Marshall sitting over here next to me,
So I get passionate and excited about it too, so I'm glad that you're not the only one. You are absolutely right. Look, what we need to do is we're focusing on ingredients, and that's where the technology that I actually have spent my life developing is this hydro release technology. In other words, maximizing the nutritional and the macro and micronutrients, which also includes all the natural vitamins, minerals, everything that's in these grains, nuts, and seeds, so that we create something and transform these seeds into an ingredient product that can be readily used and enhance the dairy or the meat industry. Now, what has happened so far is the initial milk alternatives, the almond milks and a few things that were out there initially really didn't have the nutritional value. They didn't have the proteins. They didn't. You could tell by the calories as well. Didn't have the were low calories. Again, low calories means no nutrition, and you couldn't use them as a replacement for milk or in addition as a to enhance the milk because they didn't have the full nutrition. They had all these other ingredients in there. In the meat alternatives, a little bit different. They're working more towards it, but does it have the same digestibility as our meat industry? Not really, not yet. We're working on that. We have something, again, via this hydro release process that we developed, that we don't need to add all the different ingredients. That was just the point. Everything nutritionally in whole brown rice or whole oats is in the products we make. So we introduced that as the Elmhurst line of products, unsweetened, because basically all they are is water and a handful of oats or nuts. Everything is in there. And so it's, for better terms, liquid oats or liquid rice and everything. Putting those in combination with the dairy milks to create these hybrids is really the next step that's going to happen. Now, we've gone to the Tesla route with the Elmhurst products to show a premium where we could actually go and what the future could be there. But the real future is actually working also with the dairy industry and the meat industry. But the meat industry will be something different. We do have there hasn't been really a good meat alternative other than the soy, which isn't really particularly cared for as a base material. But the other types of pea proteins and things that they do, but you notice that they have a zillion other types of ingredients in there. I call them Frankensteinian formulations.
I wasn't going to say it. I was being nice.
Yeah, well, the problem is that was the wrong place to go. That creation of formulating products is really an old ideation. We've been doing that for the last 75 years in food science. You give us, 100 ingredients and we can make anything you want from them. The question was, and that I kept on asking, I said, now wait a second. All those ingredients that we're now putting back into it are actually in the raw material itself. What if I could change that, transform that raw material in, so that all these ingredients are liberated and functional in the same way? What type of products? Well, that's the Elmhurst products, and that's a lot of the other things that we're seeing. Functionality and digestibility that we have never seen before. But this was just a new idea on how we look at some of these things. And I firmly believe this will be and enable the dairy market in particular to go to places, and also the meat analog market to go in places where it has never gone before. So we're very excited, and it's happening right here in Western New York.
Okay. I want to get to this question, and I'm going to answer part of this question. It's regarding GMO, genetically modified organisms used in feed for dairy cattle. But the person refers to in the dairy capable model. Well, let me answer that for you, whoever submitted that question. Whether it's a 25 cow dairy farm or a 4,000 cow dairy farm, they all make milk. There's no different model depending upon size. They may be certified grass-fed, they may be certified organic, or they may be conventional, or they may be some other certification I'm not aware of. But to refer to our dairy farms as the dairy CAFO model, CAFO just refers to a regulation regarding how farms have to manage their waste stream according to their size. And that can impact here in New York State farms from 300 cows to whatever. So I just wanted to address that part of the question because I don't like it when we use terminology like that are going to put categories, farms in different categories with somewhat of a negative intent. So now that I've addressed that, I'll bring the good part of the question to you. I'm probably not popular at the moment. But the concern was, do you believe the use of genetically, and maybe you can't answer this, I don't know. Do you believe the use of GMOs, genetically modified organisms, in this place, plants and such, in feed for dairy cattle has led to lactose intolerance, Crohn's, or other health issues?
Oh, that is kind of an interesting and slightly. We don't use any, and I'm not a big proponent of GMO for the same reason that people have gone towards organic, diversity in crops. It's very important to maintain the diversity of the cultivars of crop. In case something goes wrong, you could wipe out your entire crop at that point, and that would be devastating to not only the animal industry or animal-based industry where it's using it for feed, but also for the human kind as well. So I think we want to be very, very careful. So I really support the use of organic, and those people that are maintaining and trying to maintain the natural diversity or even the plant development of diversity of seeds and cultivars. Certainly when we're looking at the raw materials that we're bringing in, because we only bring in the raw materials, the grains, nuts, and seeds, they are coming directly from the farms. Those are the only products that we use. We see a big shift in a lot of our customers wanting these transformed grains made into, from organic type of basis, but we have no problem using the others. We do not use GMO though.
Okay. And, there's a whole discussion that could go on about GMOs, but that's not necessarily our purpose today. So the second question, is this a question? Okay, it's more of a statement, so I'm going to move on from that. Okay, so I want to get back to the list of questions that I had for you. So can you please address separately, and this is a submitted question, can you please address separately the trends in beverages made from plants, such as oats and coconuts, and the so-called cow-free dairy products made from flora-based proteins, such as with Perfect Day and the Kraft Venture Fund investment New Culture. Can you address those as separately as you can?
Yeah. Well,
that's a tough one.
The trends in beverages, as I said, we're trying to maximize the more nutrient values. If you look at most of the beverages right now, and especially the alternatives beverages out there, they really don't have the nutritional value. So we're looking at, and if they formulate them, they put a lot of other types of pea protein or other types of refined proteins, rice proteins. You'll see all those into these beverages. But again, there's nothing new. Those are formulated type of products. And those are changing right now with the technology that I developed, the hydro release. So we're really getting in the nutritional values and maximizing those nutritional values. So that's changing. We won't see these low nutrient value. We're going to the next quantum leap of highly nutritious grains, nuts, and seed type of products. With regards to how other people have looked at it, and referring to the Perfect Day or the New Culture type of sense, there's several things with those products. Of course, those are genetically modified organisms that they start with the yeast, and then they're teaching these yeast to now, because they've modified their genetic material, to make proteins that are very similar to the proteins in milk. Now, not all the proteins. I think they got about 6 of them that they're maximizing, the 6 most high-level ones that are found in the casein in dairy milk. And then what are they going to do with that? Well, they're going to take, first, there's a lot of things going on with that. They're still making they still have a second party involved. It's either the cow or yeast now. So they still have to feed the yeast. Okay, so that's one thing. What are they going to feed the yeast to grow the yeast? It gets back to what are they feeding the cows to make the milk. So you've got that, issue going on. And, it's, I think that what we want to do as they develop those, they're still going to have to formulate the product. So we got back to the different ingredients. So it's like they can't get that out of their minds. Basically, give me all these different, I'm a food chemist, I can take all these refined ingredients and put them together and I can create, milk. And you're sitting there saying, well, wait a second, what's the purpose here? I'm a big proponent of don't fool with Mother Nature. Why don't we just figure out what she has given us and figuring out how to work with it? And that's what I've done with the hydro release process. I said, give me the grain. And, for the last 2,000 years, all we've done is grind it, mill it to a flour or paste. And then we go from there and separate it into 100 different ingredients. And I said, the ingredients are all there to begin with. We just had to look at a different way to release all these ingredients so that the transformed material, the transformed grain, nut, or seed now can be used in ways that we couldn't have even imagined before. I mean, talk about being in a rut for thousands of years. This is the ultimate rut that we've been in, and we're about ready to change it. Now, we have the technology to, as I said, DNA and everything, and changing some of the forms there, and again, putting all the oils, the carbohydrates, everything else back into making the milk. Believe me, we can do that. But is that where we want to be? That's going to be another question. And I'm wondering how the consumers are going to respond to that as well, because it's like they cheated. You know, it's like they cheated because they were working, instead of working with something that was given to us, they're trying to create their own. So I guess it's a little bit of a God syndrome.
Good way to put it. Good way to put it. We've had a question submitted, and I'm going to ask it now, even though I sort of get to it later on. Can this be seen as an opportunity for, and it says crop farmers, but I'm going to say all farmers, because a lot of our dairy farmers grow like soybeans and wheat and oats and all of that kind of stuff. So is this an opportunity for dairy farmers and other farmers to grow these things that can be used in these plant-based food substitutes?
And yes, absolutely, because and I think there was another question once before. They said, well, are you concerned about like the almond industry and everything being the sustainability? And I with this technology in particular, this is sustainability through diversity, because we're not dealing with just one grain. We can do this hydro release process with all the different grains, all the different nuts, all the different seeds, and each one of them produces a unique range of functional and nutritional properties that really the world has not seen. And so the excitement of what we can do with these type products, and as trying to really put forward with regards to the plant forward and the potential now of adding the nutritional values that we can get from these natural ingredients. And when we make this product, I mean, it's product in, product out. We add water and we do our hydro release, and we can change the format. Well, when you have that type of nutrition and you can blend it into and make the hybrids, whether they're meat-based hybrids or beverage type hybrids, this is another way to move plant forward. You know, where it's going to be 100 years from now, I don't know. But I know 50 years from now, if the population doesn't change, we're going to be in this, at least the hybrid. And I really think that the agriculture and the dairy, these other people need to be getting the price for these very, very special type of products that they're making, meaning the milk and the cheeses and the meat products. They should continue to go up, but the hybrids will be the safety area.
Trying to figure out how to incorporate some of this into one question here. I want to back up. You keep saying hybrids. Are you talking about a hybrid of milk products and these beverage products combined together?
Well, but it has to be a nutritional. See, before, that's why I said this didn't exist before. So if you took, some of the almond beverages that are out there, excluding like the Elmhurst almond beverage, but if you took some of the other almond beverages that only had 3 almonds, that's a formulated product. You're not getting any of the nutritional value that you would from the almonds. When we do our oat base, and again, the Elmhurst oat product is just oats and water, and it's more than a serving of oats per serving that you consume. This is something that people hadn't seen before. Now, if you take that product and blend it with the milk, it's like having milk on top of your oatmeal. There's no difference as far as the nutritional value. However, if I took a lot of the other oat products that didn't have much oat in them because they were using lecithin and thickeners and other emulsifiers, to kind of duplicate the thickness and some of the properties of the oats that they didn't put in there, that's not going to work. So it is this new technology that is going to allow us for the first time to present with dairy products. Basically, it's no different than the milk that you put over your oatmeal. And but this would be one singular beverage product.
Okay. Two questions have come in. One is, have you worked with plant-based yogurts?
Yes, I have. And so one of the interesting thing about yogurts is that they don't have the, especially plant-based yogurts are all starch-based. They, again, don't have the proteins, the very essential proteins that is so advantageous about the dairy products. So with some of the transformed alternatives of these grains, nuts, and seeds that we've developed, and sometimes we refer to it as the milked, using the verb, milked grains, nuts, or seeds, those products do have the protein, and they're highly digestible proteins. They're different, but they start to behave the same way as some of the casing, so they don't interfere with it. So we could go with just a plant-based. Now, up until now, that hasn't been done. We're still looking for partners with regards to doing that type of thing, because we've got a base that would knock your socks off and will set up the same way as yogurt does. I'm still looking for potential hybrid type of people. This would make it excellent fermented morning type of products. And what we found out, what was really interesting, even when we blended it with juices, but yogurts is the same thing. This really transforms the taste profile of these things as well. So people that don't like straight yogurt actually liked the hybrid blend of, say, oats and our oats and the milk. And so that way, or for the people that are already able to make the full shift to plant forward, it works very well that way as well.
Okay. Another question, and maybe we answered this a little bit, I'm not sure. What crops would you encourage farmers to grow for the future? If you could make suggestions, what do you think is going to be the opportunities of the future? What would they be?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest futures, and it's not going to be for the reason that a lot of people think, is the hemp crop. I'm all for the growth of hemp, industrial hemp. The whole issue on the CBD and the THC, the cannabis, the medicinal cannabis is just a little portion of the significance of that we are now able to bring industrial hemp back into the United States. The value of industrial hemp, for several reasons. Number one, it can grow in a variety of different soils, from very arid regions to high moisture regions. It used to be the number one crop at the turn of the century, but for two reasons. Number one, the rope, the plant itself, and the fiber that it produces. What they didn't even realize at the time is that probably the biggest value is the nutritional value associated with the seed, the grain itself. So hemp grain is of a high nutritional value of both protein and oils. But more importantly, it's the functionality of that product is what's going to transform certainly the meat analog business, but it'll change out not so much the dairy industry, but definitely the meat analog business. But I think between that, if I was looking at the future thing in the United States, I'd be looking at the hemp area and the fiber and the grain.
Okay. Anything else but hemp? Because hemp can be difficult to harvest. Hemp is difficult to harvest. I mean, that's the fiber on that plant is really tough.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And there's several things going with that. Number one, we really haven't developed enough, again, redeveloped the different fiber handling equipment and processors to bring hemp back into it. We used to have them at the turn of the century, but those were all gone away. But think about this, we're getting, and oddly enough, we're eating a lot of trees these days. Literally eating them, because a lot of the fiber is coming from trees as well. We don't get too much on the plant fiber from the crops that we're currently growing, but we do get it from the trees, which I always found kind of funny because nobody eats trees, but we do actually. The value here in the hemp crop is, again, setting up the fiber processors. But I think that there will be enough in the hemp grain to really support a lot more people than we realized. And yes, the harvesting is a little bit different now. If you're thinking of the harvesting for the CBD, yeah, that's even more difficult. And a lot of people have been struggling with that one. Not that CBD is bad, but it's a much more difficult crop to handle versus, and as I said, the relative comparison of what we can do with the CBD versus what we can do with the hemp grain fiber and the nutritional value of the grain is night and day.
Okay. There's a question that came in about your process, wondering if you could be more specific about your process that you've talked about, this new process. What can you share with us more specifically about how that works? And we've got 9 minutes left, so short answer, please.
Yeah. The short of that is that we realize that by starting with grains that have not been heat treated or processed or handled really in any significant ways, that basically taking the viable seeds that have been clean, so whether it's grains or nuts or seeds, we bring these in as is. And what we found is that when they're milled, as I was talking about, dry milled or processed with heat, it ends up really aggregating some of the proteins and the fibers so that they are no longer functional, and you can't really do much with them at that point. The hydro release technology that we developed is the fact that it's like taking a seed and hitting it with water. So it's more like power washing. If you were to power wash the wall behind you, you'd take it off in layers, right? And you're really not destroying too much. You're just taking it off layer at a time. This is what we do in our process. So the very first part of that process is to carefully separate all the macro and micronutrients and let them do their thing. So there's natural emulsifiers, natural lecithins, that as soon as the oil becomes liberated, as soon as the proteins become liberated, they can be handled separately from the starches that get handled. And this really just makes a huge difference when these things are released and can function themselves. And every grain, nut, and seed is different. I can't, express it. And we haven't seen them because all we've seen is these lumps of protein and fibers before. This is what people have been consuming. So when people make the milks at home or anything from grains, nuts, and seeds, they get a nice milk and they say, oh, this is so much better. But they miss the fact that we're actually separating out the protein and the fiber. Ours has all the protein in it. And believe me, this is one dynamite protein that we were kind of missing all these years.
I had a question come in. Doesn't it defeat the purpose of having meat and dairy alternatives if we're just going to add meat and dairy to these products? If you're a vegan or vegetarian or lactose intolerant, won't that not work for those customers?
And that's where I'm not excluding those. In fact, I wish there were more vegans. They're not. it's, as I said, this is not a revolution, this is an evolution. And so we're slowly moving to that lane. We can provide a complete vegan alternative using these plant forwards, and we're getting very, very good at that. And some of the things that will come up in the future, as I said, you got some old technology really with the Beyond or Impossible, but people sit there and say, oh, wow, they're rediscovering the fact of soy protein isolate or pea proteins and highly formulated products. But there's really nothing new there. This is something totally new, and this is something that's got a protein that's highly digestible, so it's going to be really functional in that application. And then, as I said, the other application with regards to dairy, this just gives an opportunity to create these hybrids. And I think we have to kind of open our, with regards to a lot of these hybrids, they've been out there and people never even realized them, especially in the meat analogs, like on the prepared meals. Check the ingredient deck, it already has soy in it. So we've been diluting the meat with these things for a very long time, mainly for pricing benefits. But going all the way, no problem.
What does meat analog mean?
So a meat analog just means that it has the texture of meat, and it should have the nutritional value of meat. So it's like it's a meat alternative. As we look at this as going forward, this is very interesting with regards to the new products that are coming out, because from a plant perspective, and some of the things that we've seen for the first time, they have their own unique flavor and taste and texture, including the same juiciness. What people like about meat sometimes is about the texture. And it would be nice to have foods that create a similar type of texture, but it's going to have its own taste. We refer to those as animal agnostics, meaning it'll have its own. It won't be a chicken and it won't be a meat. Things. There's a question of, should it be totally different? And yes, it can, and it's very exciting for some of these Epicurean styles that we've been developing with these new plant-based products. So those, the world is changing very quickly, and the world of our hydro-released ingredients is really changing it.
We are just about out of time. The most important question I haven't gotten to yet, the one that I've missed, is do you prefer the plant-based burger or the beef-based burger?
Well, at this point of time, I haven't tasted a plant-based burger that really satisfied my totally satisfied my desire. However, the ones that we're creating right now with the hydro-release actually do for the first time. So when those come out and become commercialized this next year, I think that will be by far my favorite at the time. However, am I going to totally give up the meat and everything? I think is the more saleable question. No, I'm afraid to say that I am a flexitarian.
All right. Well, hey, the nice part about agriculture is we can provide the food that, whether you're a vegan, vegetarian, flexitarian, or an omnivore like me, they're all agricultural products. And the key is, one of the reasons why we held this webinar today is to look at the future of agriculture and identify, okay, what's happening? What are those trends? Where are we going? So it was important. And the information, I'm getting some great feedback already from people. The information you've shared has been phenomenal. There were some questions I actually had to skip over just because I was focusing on one area and I needed to broaden us out a little bit. So Dr. Mitchell, thank you very much for all of the information and the conversation we've enjoyed today.
No, you're very welcome, Jay. It was a pleasure to be talking with you as always.
Well, we appreciate it. I want to remind folks that we have on November 19th, Dr. Frank Mittliner, the greenhouse gas guru, will be joining us to talk about agriculture's impact on climate change. And that's going to be, just like this conversation, a tough one to get through all of the questions that we would ask. But we really appreciate each of you joining us for today's webinar, and hope that you'll come back and share the information about future webinars. Dr. Mitchell, have a great weekend.
Thank you very much, Jay.
All right, all of you have a great weekend. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.